Hey, friend, welcome back to Don't Wing It. This is episode 110, and it's going to be a little different today because I am airing an episode that I recorded last summer. So, the summer of 2023, I had just wrapped up my beta launch for my Flight podcast group program, and I did that in the spring. And so I was wrapping it up, and I had each one of those women on the podcast. And Abby first was one of those women. And let me tell you a little bit about Abby. Her passion is to help small business owners find their brand foundation. She is an incredible entrepreneur, and she is a mom. And so she is the quintessential mompreneur. She was in my beta program to launch her capsule podcast. She has 6 episodes that she has aired, and we are going to hear from her today. And it will give you, yes, a chance to hear about Abby and her business, but it also will give you an opportunity to hear about what the flight program is about. And so let's jump in. And so before we start talking about podcasting and how you started and all the things, tell us a little bit about your business and what you do that lights you up.
Sure. So I am a branding specialist, but I do branding a little bit differently, I think, than most people who create brand packages out there. First and foremost, I'm not formally trained as a graphic designer, but art and psychology are both two of my passions, and I love branding because I get to squish those two together and create something beautiful out of it. But second, I don't really care what your brand looks like so much as I care what your brand stands for. And so my branding process is less creating a pretty brand and more helping you discover your core motivations and your niche and getting you really solid on the kind of impact that you want to create in the world and who you want to create it for. And then making something beautiful out of that. Because, I mean, you've heard the phrase that beauty is skin deep, but I think pretty is skin deep and beauty is, deeper than that. So what I love to do is to create a beautiful brand, a brand that is beautiful in the foundations and a brand that is beautiful on top of it as well. It's like putting on a pretty dress and feeling all clear and confident in how you want to act that day. It's kind of the same thing, is I want to help you gain the mindset and the clarity, and then put something pretty on top so that you're not just floundering around with the pretty and not knowing how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
It's
makes me
good.
super happy.
I love that. I love that because of the fact that you want to go deep and you ask thorough questions from what I'm told. And so the cool
I
thing
try.
is one of your podcast episodes, you are doing a podcast capsule, which if
Right.
y'all, as my listeners, want to go back and listen to that episode, I'll put it in the show notes about how to create a podcast capsule. You have done that. And one of the episodes is about having that branding call with someone, and you go through and you model that. And so I'm excited for that because then people will get to hear your podcast and get to hear the questions that you ask and have that kind of conversation or listen in to that conversation. So I'm excited about that. Okay, so one more question I want to ask. What was your favorite part of the flight group program? I know it was a beta program, so y'all are really helping me out with feedback and testing things out and things like that. But you could think of it from a personal or professional point of view.
Okay, so I'm going to do personal first and then I'll do professional because I love the way you did it. Personally, my favorite part was probably getting to meet all of the ladies in the group because they each brought unique and applicable wisdom. We all worked in different niches with different specialties, but there was nothing that you couldn't apply from one section to another. And just watching everyone show up, getting to participate, and really getting to absorb the wisdom from the ladies around me. One of the things that I don't know if it's weird anymore or not, I've always been the youngest person in the group. Always. And even now, as I'm approaching my 30s, I'm still the youngest person in the group because everyone else is at least 5 years older than me.
Uh-huh.
And I love it because I get to take all these other years of wisdom
Yes.
and absorb it. And at the same time, when I'm in a good group like yours, there's still room for me to show up with my own wisdom or insights and still be able to share it and still be respected. So like in a good group,
Mhm.
there's that synergy, and I don't mind being the youngest,
Mm.
especially when people are still looking for input.
Yeah.
Um, because I get to take everything that people have learned over the last 2 decades that I don't have
Yeah.
and get to like absorb that. So that was probably my favorite part personally, was getting to interact with everyone and getting
Yeah.
to listen. Um, Professionally, I love the way you did the portal.
Okay.
It was easy. It was simple to navigate. It was fantastic. I love the way you did
Good.
the portal.
Good.
And then, of course, like I mentioned earlier, your videos were fantastic. Like so easy to watch, fun to watch, and then also like really useful because I went back and rewatched them when I was like, what is she said to do here? Oh yeah, this. So that saved me hours on YouTube. It was fantastic.
Oh, perfect. That's so good because I want to make it easy and simple and easy to navigate. So I loved hearing that. And I love hearing about the personal. I think that is really wise. And I'm usually the youngest one when I'm in like a
Oh
Bible
yeah.
study group or something. And so it's like you're gleaning this wisdom from these older women or even just people that are your peers. And
Hmm.
it's incredible. It's really incredible to get that different aspect. And like you said, everybody is respectful of everybody, no matter how young they are or how old they are. And so
Right.
I really like that aspect.
Well,
Good
and
job.
I
I want to give you the opportunity to share about your podcast because now your trailer is out in the world and
mhm,
you have, like we talked about earlier, a podcast capsule where you
mhm,
have certain number of episodes that are always there, evergreen. They are there and you can direct people to them if you're talking with somebody on an Instagram message, if you're talking through an email, or even just in real life and they're like, hey, what do you do? And you're like, here's a card, here's a QR code, go check this
right.
out, go check my podcast out. So tell us what it's called and what you did on the capsule.
Okay, so the podcast is called Branding from the Heart. Probably a little bit obvious if you've listened to this conversation why it's called Branding from the Heart,
Yeah.
because heart-centered branding for heart-centered entrepreneurs is what I do.
Mm.
Um, and so I have taken 7 episodes. It'll be 7 episodes to explain a little bit of where I came from and why it's important to me. And then we dive into what I call the foundations of branding, which is like your core values, your motivations, your niche, stuff like that. We do have one episode that touches really briefly on like systems. I'm not a systems expert, but I know they're important. So we talk about
Mhm.
it just really briefly, what it can do for you as a provider and what it can do for your clients for their client journey. Um, and then I have 3 episodes where I get to like really nerd out about the parts that I love, which would be colors, color psychology, images, shapes, and shape psychology, and why they're important and how they interact with your brand. And
Mm.
then we have one episode, also a little shorter, on your vocal brand. I'm not a copywriter. I know so many copywriters who could talk about this forever and it would be awesome. And I would love to have them on sometime, but that's for a different season.
Yep.
Um, but we do talk about your vocal brand and how your brand voice matters and why keeping that
Mm.
consistent can affect it. And then the last episode, like you mentioned earlier, I did get to interview one of the ladies from the beta program, and so we had basically the chat that would be like my, not my introductory call, but like my initial branding call. Because the way
Yeah.
I work is, we decide we're going to work together. Then you get a questionnaire, and then we have a call that goes over the questionnaire. And it's just a conversation where we talk about the things that you said. And then I create a brand board off of that. And then I give the brand board to you. And you say, I like this part. I don't like that part. I like this part. Or, hey, I love the whole thing right away. Um,
Good.
and then I make edits based on that, and we go from there to create your brand. Um, but so yeah, we had basically what that initial call would be, where she answered the questionnaire for me. We had a call. We ended up chatting for like an hour and a half, like an hour and 25 minutes, and it was awesome. Unfortunately, the entire conversation won't be on the podcast,
Yeah.
but
You'll have to hire Abby and get that conversation for yourself, right? To get the
exactly,
whole thing.
exactly.
Tell us where everybody can find your podcast and where they can find you online.
Okay, so the podcast is on most of your general podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, a whole host of others that I didn't bother to memorize what they were called.
There's a bunch.
Um, there's a bunch, but Apple and Spotify are the big ones where you can find me. You can probably just look it up in your favorite podcast player, see if it's there. If it's not, send me a DM with the name of your podcast player and I'll see if I can get it on there. Um, And then, so yeah, look up Branding from the Heart with Abby first. And you should be able to find it. And then other than that, you can find me online at Instagram at the_verdant_heart_project, because I decided on like a really difficult title to go with, handle to go with. And that's okay. So you can find me at the Verdant Heart Project on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook because it's bad for my mental health. And other than that, you can always shoot me an email at abby@theverdantheartproject.co.
Okay. Okay. So y'all go check her out if you are looking into getting some branding, and you can go listen and see what value she has to offer. So thank you so much, Abby, for being in the group, for saying yes, and for going for it, and for not giving up. Thank you so much.
Thank you for making it all possible.
Yay.